mind back to 2010 when the earthquake struck Haiti. It was a 7 magnitude earthquake that struck the tiny Caribbean nation. That from here, if none of you have ever taken a flight, is only a 4-hour direct flight, which you might find hard to believe, from New York City. So a 7 magnitude earthquake in a country struggling to stand on its feet without that is devastating. 200,000 plus lives lost, 300,000 people injured, 1.5 million people displaced and homeless. So the level of devastation you could expect was kind of beyond belief for most people. It certainly was for me, sitting in my comfortable home back in Australia, watching everything unfold on the news, as I'm sure most of you did, and just fathom the pain and suffering that most people were going through. And I watched as the days unfolded and aid came in and people came in, and then I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I went back to my regular life. A long way from Haiti. It's almost as far away around the planet as you can get. It's a 33-hour flight. I have done it many times. and I went back to my normal life. And I kind of forgot about what was happening. It dropped off the screens in Australia because we're so far away, and something else had happened in the Asia Pacific region and it switched over. The media switched their attention. And I'm really embarrassed to admit I literally went back to my own life. I had an incredible job at the time. I was tasked with the privilege of building $1 billion worth of housing for the disabled and elderly in our community in Queensland. And it was an incredibly fast-paced, fun, energetic, and really purposeful program. And so I loved my job, and I loved everything about it. And it was weeks after the earthquake had struck, and I can't describe it any other way, and I won't go into the full detail, but I had dreams every single night about Haiti. I would wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and have had these vivid dreams about what Haiti could look like. And this went on for 2 weeks, and I was starting to feel a little bit crazy. I didn't have any connection to Haiti other than I'd seen it on TV. I didn't even know where Haiti was before the earthquake. And so I can't tell you anything, I can't explain why this was happening. And I started to feel drawn to Haiti. As I mentioned, I was running a construction program. I've always been in construction and property, and I started to think maybe our skills could be useful. My husband was also in property and construction, and maybe in the rebuilding effort of Haiti, our skills could be useful. And so I started to talk to my husband about this and say to him, look, I think maybe we should move to Haiti. And he thought I was absolutely insane. He flat out said, no way, that's never going to happen. I kept bringing it up at different times of the week, kept mentioning it to him, saying I think we should go, and he kept absolutely flat out refusing. And it was a few weeks later that we were sitting in church, and this man came from, he was an American lawyer, he'd come from California, moved his family to Singapore, given up everything, lived in this teeny tiny apartment in Singapore and served the poor, representing them in Singapore for multiple issues that were going on there. And my husband was really impacted by the way that this man had given up his comfortable life and paid the price. Because in the end, that's what we're all given, that choice. There is always a price to pay with the choices that we make. Some prices are small and some prices are large. But he had paid the price, and my husband was very deeply impacted by this. And as we were leaving, I looked over at him and I said, what's going on? And he said, we're moving to Haiti. And so that kind of began our journey. We sold all of our possessions, as we got rid of everything we could, packed our bags and left. And on that journey, all we had organized was accommodation. We found out there was a ship moored off the port of Haiti that was like an old cruise ship, and people were staying in it as emergency accommodation. With that 1.5 million people displaced, accommodation is a high priority for everybody. And so we booked this accommodation thinking, well, at least that's something we've got organized. Who knows what else we're going to do when we get there. And on the flight from LA to Miami, we found out that the ship had set sail. Our accommodation literally just sailed out of Port. And so at that point, we had a choice to make. We were standing at the Miami airport with our flight on going to Haiti, and we didn't really know what to do. So let me go back a few steps to tell you how we made the decision. Back when we got married, 11 years ago now, we were in Thailand for a honeymoon. Wonderful country, full of very happy people. And we were wandering along the street, and there was lots of restaurant owners coming out to meet us. And they were trying to, drag us into their restaurant. It's a pretty competitive street. So we're walking along, and this man literally stood in front of us. And all he said to us was, "Please say yes." He literally looked at us and said, "Please, please say yes." And that kind of, we just couldn't say no to that. So we followed him in and we went to his restaurant. And for some reason, that man has always stuck with us. And when we're stuck at a kind of junction or a crux in our road where we have two converging paths we can take, one of us usually has a feeling of which way we should go, and we stand there and we say, "Please say yes." And it's something that has continued through our marriage. And so we're standing at the Florida airport, and my husband looks at me and I look at him and I said, "Please say yes." And so we got on that plane. We had nowhere to stay. We didn't know who we were going to be working with. But what's unfolded since then is nothing short of remarkable. So we landed in Haiti. Oops, can you go on? Thanks. We landed in Haiti, and this is generally what we saw everywhere. The devastation was more than we had prepared ourselves for, and the suffering was far greater than we had expected. So for the first 6 months, I don't actually think we were that helpful. We did everything we could. With the rebuilding, we worked on construction projects with lots of different organisations. But a lot of it was just really getting acclimatized to the country and learning. We very much had our eyes wide open, and we were learning as much as we could. And during this time, I visited school after school, and what I saw was schools with no books. And for those of you that attend Dalton, can you imagine what it would be like to go to school and you have absolutely no access to books? It just would make school life pretty unbearable and very difficult. And that's unfortunately what I saw, and what I learnt was that had nothing to do with the earthquake. That was what Haiti was like before the earthquake. And I just couldn't fathom what it would be like to go through schooling and how you could possibly get an education with no access to knowledge. And I met a girl named Robaline. Just go back on. Sweet grade 8 student at the time, and she'd been given a textbook to study. She was the only grade 8 student at the school, so she was self-teaching, and she'd been given a textbook to work from. And she was having trouble with her biology assignment, and her homework, and she asked for help. And so she brought her textbook over, and this is what we saw. So even though she had got access to a textbook, this is the quality. No, all the way to the beginning. Yeah, thank you. This is the quality that she had to deal with. This is why she couldn't determine the organs of the body, because the printing was so poor. So even when you can get access to books in these countries, they're just not what they should be, and they're not what these kids deserve. So at Library for All, before that, I basically didn't know what to do. I didn't think I could do anything about it, and it was something that it just pained me. And so I started researching the space. I started looking for a scalable model, and my plan at that point was just to connect them into Haiti. I didn't know anything about libraries. I'm not a librarian. I read a lot, but that was the closest I came. And unfortunately, at the end of 3 months of research, I hadn't found a single scalable model. And so at that point, I had a choice to make. And we could head back to Australia and resume our very comfortable life, albeit with less possessions, or we could do something about it. And I'm grateful to say that my husband pushed me along the way, and many, many times said to me, "Please say yes." So eventually we started Library for All. And Library for All was built around the premise that every child everywhere deserves access to knowledge. There are 250 million children globally that are going to school and are still not even learning the basics. They're not reading, they're not learning to read, they're not learning to write, and they're not learning arithmetic of any kind, even after 4 years of schooling. The resources are just not there. The teaching expertise is just not there. And to me, that is just not okay. It is a basic human right to be able to read. And that is the premise that Library for All was built on. So in Haiti, we launched a pilot. We wanted to see what a digital library for a developing country should and could look like. When you're dealing with a country with little or no access to electricity, internet is patchy at best, you have to design a cloud-based library with all of that in mind. So it poses a lot of challenges. and we didn't even know if it was possible. So we set out and we launched a Kickstarter campaign. We asked every single one of our friends and family to tip in. We raised almost $110,000, and we launched a pilot in Brescia, Haiti. And these are some of our kids. Bring them up. These are some of the kids at our pilot school. And they're some of our pilot devices. They were $45 tablets from India. And we basically preloaded free content from Project Gutenberg and other resources. And we wanted to see what the kids would do. We wanted to see what the teachers would do and what they wanted in a digital library, what it should look like. We didn't want to presume we knew. And so we did almost a year-long pilot with this school and learned as much as we could. We didn't want to waste resources building something that wasn't useful. So we did, after we completed the year-long pilot, we built the very first version of Library for All. It is a cloud-based library. It is filled with culturally relevant and language-appropriate books. So in Haiti, that means Haitian Creole. We have the largest digital collection of Haitian Creole books in existence now. The rest are predominantly French books. And they're graded from K through 12 is what we focused on. And we have this incredible Haitian advisory board that helps us tag the content, regrade it. So even if the content is from another country and it's graded for grade 5 here, it might get regraded for grade 6 or grade 7 in Haiti. And they go through that with us. And so that it's not just a library that's full of 200,000 books that no one wants to read and it's hard to find the actual ones they want. This is a curated list of books. We have just under 1,300 titles in Haiti right now. And we're adding to that all the time, but it must be quality. It has to meet our quality standards to get into the library. It's not about the number of books, it's about the quality. And we've expanded. Haiti, we're now working in 10 schools, and we're in a kind of testing and evaluation stage before we scale up in Haiti. We're working mainly with schools and education providers, and that's going really well. It's a very deep engagement we have with the community there. We have an on-the-ground team that works hand in hand with the schools. And so far it's going great. We also have a program in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I was really excited to see the earlier speaker talking about the DRC. We have a pilot school there that we're really excited about. And in June we'll launch a countrywide expansion into Rwanda. We're partnered with the Rwandan government and the First Lady of Rwanda and Bloomberg Philanthropies from New York here. And we're really excited that the library will be available through the entire country of Rwanda at the end of June. And so we're busily now trying to prepare the relevant library for Rwanda. It's a lot of work, and so the team's putting a lot of effort into it. But what we hope to achieve is removing the barriers that exist to knowledge, that exist to unlocking access to those that deserve access to books, reading materials and other resources. They deserve it just like you do. And so if you know anybody that should be speaking to Library for All, if you're looking for volunteer opportunities, I really encourage you to get involved. But mainly what I wanted to emphasize was that we found our purpose. We found what we were meant to be working on. And I fundamentally believe that every one of you were created with a purpose, with a reason for being here. And whether you know it now or whether you'll find out in years to come what that is, I just encourage you to really remember that message of just say yes. There is a price to pay, and I can promise you it's worth every moment. It's worth every moment paying that price. So when you do find it, when you do find that what you were made for, what you've been put here to do,